Welcome back, this is Sachin again, and today we'll be talking about a concept called restrict viewer access in CloudFront. The component we are going to use here is CloudFront API Gateway, Lambda, and S3 bucket. And the overall goal here is based on the user type, whether a normal user or an admin user, users should have access to a specific content into this bucket. So as you can see here is the content of my bucket is an admin folder, and inside there's an admin.jpg, and then cat.jpg is like on the bucket level, and then there is two different folder, public and user, containing public.jpg and user.jpg. All I want to achieve here is admin should have access to everything, including the admin folder content. However, users should also access everything except the content inside the admin folder. And how we're gonna achieve here is now that we can discuss into this particular architecture. So let's assume like somehow users have authenticated and they have a token. So for this demo, I'm assuming a user has a token user123, and admin has its own token called admin123. And when they invoke the CloudFront URL, as you can see here in this curl command, they're accessing this CloudFront, they pass two information. One is under key object parameter, what object they want to access, and what they will present their token, and the backend system will understand, okay, based on these token, okay, this is an admin, so let's give access to the content. Now how the overall it works is these users will present will make a call to CloudFront. This is /auth, just ignore it, not this one. So CloudFront will understand, okay, this is /auth, and the request will go to an API gateway. API gateway will pass that to Lambda. The logic, whether it's normal user or an admin user and should be given access to this key object or not, is coded here in Lambda. And let's say user is authorized to access that particular object. Lambda will invoke CloudFront. Internally, it will invoke some kind of a AWS CloudFront sign command, and then it will generate the sign URL and send this back to the user. Now, once user gets this sign URL, this is basically an authentication and authorization to access that particular object. User will again invoke, like you can see in the path 6, the CloudFront, and the CloudFront will understand, okay, this is authenticated, and it will render that particular the secure content privately to the user. All right, so I think the architecture is clear. Let's jump into the demo part now. All right, so now once we are clear with the architecture, let's quickly create this component. So what I'm gonna do here is first create this CloudFront, and with S3 as an origin. Okay, so basically this particular connection. So let's do that. So before I create a CloudFront, and now because I will be using restrict viewer access, I should have created a public and private key. So let's do that first. Okay, let me remove everything. Okay, so now this folder is empty. I'm gonna create private key, and you can use this openssl command to create that private key. So this will create a private key over here. So, and you can use this private key as an input to produce the output as a public key. All right, so now I have two keys over here. Let's put the content of the public key, and let's copy it. So for to use restrict viewer access, it will ask for a key group, and that's why we need this public and private key. So if you come down in the CloudFront, there's something called public key. Just click on a create key. I'm gonna just give it name test key, and then put the content of your public key over here. Create public key. Now once your test key is created, you go to key group, create key group. Just I'm gonna give it name as test key or test key group, and then use test key which you have just now created. All right, so now my test key group is created. Now we can create this distribution, create distribution. So I'm gonna choose that bucket. So now because it's an S3 bucket, the type of origin will be an S3 origin. Okay, and again name as test underscore just origin. Yeah. So I don't want so this bucket is a private, it's not a public bucket. So bucket, the first option, public bucket must allow public access. This is not we want it. We want CloudFront to have access and not the bucket. I should be making it public. So I'm just going to choose origin access control. All right. So sorry, this is not object access control. It's called origin access control. Anyways, so come back here. If you're coming here in this screen first time, you click on create control setting. What's gonna do here is create a virtual role which will have access to this S3 bucket. So because I've already done it before, it's a one-time operation. If you're coming first time, of course you can do it. Otherwise, I recommend to use whatever if you have already created. So now this has just created a role, but it's still a bucket doesn't allow access to this role unless you update the bucket policy, and that's what this error message is all about. So once we create this distribution, we will update the bucket policy. So come down, you can leave everything default. Now another concept called restrict viewer access. Okay, by default, if we just use this origin access control, which will create a role and give access this bucket to this CloudFront, and we go ahead with the restrict viewer access as default no, which means even the bucket is private, the whole content will be available into this via this CloudFront URL, which is publicly accessible. So that's what we don't want it. We want a restriction, role-based restriction. So that's where we are going with restrict viewer access as yes over here. So I'm going to choose yes, and then choose the trusted key group, which is a recommended behavior, and then I have used test key group over here. All right, so pretty much same. So cache policy, I think it'll complain for it if you don't give it. I'm just going to give caching optimized, and everything should be okay. Create distribution. Okay, so remember that you have to update the bucket policy, and that's where it gives this alert. You just say copy policy, go to your bucket, go to your permissions, and in the bucket policy, edit, and there's no policy over here, just paste all your content, and you see it ends with 0NA for the CloudFront distribution. This is what exactly you have created right now, 0NH, sorry, NH. Okay, save changes. All right, so now you have created your distribution, 0NH, just remember it because they have like a little more created previously. This is deploying. All I'm going to do here is pause my video for a couple of minutes because it takes 5 to 7 minutes to fully come into an active state, and once it is inactive, I will continue the demo from that onwards. All right, I just waited for a couple of minutes and I can see that deploying is gone, and my is a specific date under last modified. So my this distribution which ends with 0NH is fully active. So let me go inside that. All right, so now if we see this architecture, what all we have done so far is S3 bucket we have created, this folder content we have created, which is anyway already there. In this demo, we created CloudFront and enabled origin access control and provided restricted viewer access yes. And when we did it, we use a public key and a private key. So now let's see how from the command line we can access these objects, and once command line works, we will build this separate path where whatever we are doing by command line, this Lambda will be doing that. So let's get started. Okay, all right, so I will share all these links, but let's quickly focus on this particular command. Is for AWS CloudFront sign. So basically you provide all these information over here, and CloudFront will generate a secure URL, and using that you can access that particular object. All right, you have to give the URL for CloudFront, the key pair ID, the public key you have created, that ID, and the private key, and till what date and time this URL should be accessible. Okay, so let me go to CloudFront, and this is the one which you remember, and with 0NH. copy the distribution. I have this command already, which I have done previously. I'm gonna replace the base URL, Control V, and okay, in fact, let me also access the cat image. So let me replace that as well, and the key pair ID. So remember, we created a public key, the test one, this one. So and with gr03, replace it here, perfect. And this is my private key, so which I have already generated at this particular path. The private key and public key. Public key is what we have uploaded to CloudFront. Private key is still with me in my MacBook. It has not traveled outside. So, and I want to access till 2024, so that's fine. Should be accessible even if I access it a couple of times for this demo. So I just paste everything over here, hit enter, and this has generated this full URL, and you can see when it expires and the signature, which basically authorize for this URL to access that admin.jpg. So new tab, press enter, and I can see my admin is accessible. If I just change to, let's say, I can then just slash cat.jpg and I use the same one, of course it will not work. Or if you remove this authorization and go back to like admin.jpg, of course it's not going to work until and unless you paste the full URL with the authorization signature. Anyways, so what we can see over here, that this whole path is working. Maybe let me quickly show for the cat URL as well. Maybe we have prepared that URL, so copy it, paste it over here, and then generates it. Copy the whole URL. I can see my cat pic. Okay. All right. So what so far we have done here is this path is ready. Now all I'm gonna do here is to basically do it in one single curl command, and whatever we have done via command line, this lambda should be doing that. So let's create the lambda. I don't have any lambda right now, so 0, create lambda from scratch. Function name, my lambda, whatever. Runtime, I will be choosing Java 8. That's it. Create function, build it, and once you create a zip, upload that zip into this lambda function, which I'm gonna do it here in front of you. Okay, so my lambda function is created, and I need to upload a zip. Now from this architecture, if you see what all it needs, so this lambda function, and if you remember that AWS CloudFront sign, I have to give a private key, so it must have access to the private key, point number 1, and it will be connecting to the CloudFront. So of course it needs a CloudFront URL as well, and the public key ID. The public key and private key definitely will need. So let's get that. So in the CloudFront, this is my public key ID. Okay. No. All right. So this is a hello world lambda, just a dummy code, throwaway kind of a code, which I have just created for this demo. There is a file called constant, and this is what you need to be bothered. Rest all, it will just work. These are the variable part is only here. So there are 3 things, as I just explained. I'm going to replace it. So first is the public key. So this is my public key. Okay, so this code will be available in GitHub. Check out that and replace this variable over here. Build it and upload that jar in your lambda function if you want to try on your own. Okay, public key, the distribution name. So let me go to the CloudFront distribution that ends with 0nh. Yeah, this guy. Go inside and copy that distribution name and paste it over here. Remove the HTTPS part and finally the private key, which is in my laptop. I'm gonna cat rsa.private, copy the whole content, copy and replace it over here. Delete, paste. All right, so now my lambda function is almost ready. All I'm gonna do here is just build and upload that jar. Okay, nvm clean package. So I mean, I just created it. If you are just following this demo and you want to try on your own, you can just take this code, replace these variables, and just build that. Okay, so now I'm in my Lambda code upload from genrsa upload. Okay, this is the guy today, just 9:40. Yeah, this is the one I have built it. CloudFront signed lambda.jar. Okay, save. Okay, takes a little while. Okay, meanwhile it is uploading Lambda. Let me go to the API gateway because that's the next thing which I will be needed. Okay, so this code is uploaded successfully. Now go to API gateway, and all you need to look for is REST API. Don't go for REST API private. REST API build. Okay, I'm gonna use a REST, so that should be okay. I'm gonna build a new API. Give an API name. I'm just gonna give a test API, which is from my browser history. Create API. Okay, here you can create a resource. I am not bothered for this demo. I'm just gonna directly create a method inside that. So get should be okay for me. Okay, I will be using Lambda as backend, and I'll be using my Lambda. Choose that. Okay. All right, so now remember from this diagram that these are the two things we'll be passing. One is your query param, and one is your header. So for that I need to tell what all these two parameter I'm gonna pass. So URL query string parameter, add query, just say key obj, this is my history anyway, so select that, and HTTP request header, add header, and okay, great, it's still access token, tick mark. So these are the two things I'm planning to pass. So that's why I choose it over here. Now go back to method execution and integration request, because you need to pass header to your Lambda function. If you see this diagram from here to here, I eventually call Lambda header. That's why you need to go for integration request. All right, and you need to provide the mapping. So add query. So same key object will come over here, and from your request key object it should map. Take this. Great. HTTP header, add header, access token. Great, awesome. So my request, method request header access token. So basically these things you're planning to pass from here, and they should map to this particular name. This will be passed to Lambda. So just press tick over here as well. Great. Now finally is the mapping template. You use this one where there's no template. Recommended part, just select this pass through. Content type, choose application JSON. Great, that's also in my history. Press the stick, click on this, and the last step in this is at least method request pass through, and save. That's all. So now API is there. All we need to do is to basically deploy that API. So I'll say deploy, and in a new stage, and I'm gonna call it auth deploy. All right, so this is giving me this particular URL. So I'm gonna copy that. Okay, let's say curl -x get this URL. Now key obj. Now I want to access let's say admin/admin.jpg. Okay, and I'm gonna pass header access token as admin123. Perfect. So now this has gone to my Lambda, and my Lambda has a logic that if you have admin123, then we'll quickly show it to you. So if you see auth users, like I've hard coded, works for my demo. It's a user123 and admin123. If you don't pass any of these two, of course it's throw exception, and admin will give access to admin, and user will be given access to everything except admin folder. Anyways, so now we using this URL we can access admin picture. So now if I give the user token, and that's where it is unauthorized. So just recall this architecture. I am passing a user token, it goes to Lambda, Lambda identifies and blocks it over here. However, in case of admin, when we were accessing the content inside admin, Lambda understands an admin token, and once that logic is passed, it makes a call to CloudFront and gets that signed URL. And using that signed URL in the browser, you can access securely the content inside an S3 bucket. So it's almost completed everything, but the only thing is like I am still hitting direct auth URL, but you can actually create that as a custom origin again in the same CloudFront. So that let's do that, the last missing piece as well. So for that, you go to your CloudFront and the distribution you have created. Now you see the origin we have created is S3, basically this part. Now we are going to create this origin as well over here. I'm going to say create origin, and how you will create an origin over here is copy link address and just paste it over here, remove the /auth part, just give the base URL, select that. Okay, so okay, API Gateway, yeah, O2, perfect, yeah. Say match viewer, it should be okay, should be fine. It starts with O2. If you want to change the name, change it. For me, it's fine. Create origin. Now origin is created. All I need now to change the behavior, that /auth only should go to my API gateway, and rest everything, the default, should go to my S3 bucket. Go to this behavior. Now everything is going into the test origin. Sorry for this wrong name. I'm going to create the behavior path pattern /auth should go to O2. Okay, and then here's restrict viewer access. No, for this part we don't want a restrict access, so that should be okay. This AWS already chosen the best policy, like become for API Gateway, no caching. I think that should be okay. Create behavior. So now we can see the /auth will go to API Gateway, but everything else will go to test origin, and my test origin is basically the S3 origin. So now whatever we are calling with this direct hitting the API Gateway, we can now do everything via CloudFront itself. So let's do that. So my CloudFront URL, go to general, this is my URL, and okay, we clear that screen. Okay, now /auth. I'm gonna change the API Gateway URL with the CloudFront URL. Should work. Oh yeah, of course this is unauthorized, so let's change it to, okay, let's keep it user123, but let me access my cat pic. Okay, so key object equal to cat.jpg. It has created this URL. I'm just gonna hit this, and here is my cat picture. Okay, this is not my cat, this is just a cat I downloaded from internet. Anyways, I think that completes this whole architecture implementation, how we can securely access the content of S3 bucket using the signed URL, by using restrict viewer access, by using CloudFront, API Gateway, and Lambda. All right, and before I say thank you, I just want to thank Mr. Jagdish Chandramina, who has helped me to build the component of the Lambda component, which provide access to these objects. It took me a little time, and I was focusing in all these part, and as he helped me over here, and just want to say thanks to him. All right, thanks everyone for watching. Hope you learned something new, and like all my other previous videos, you can actually try on your own all the commands and the code, and possibly the full explanation I have tried, even if the video is a little longer, and probably I know it could be a little boring for you, at least for some of you. So anyway, just if you like this video, please like and share with your friends. Thank you.